Welcome to the Enjoy a Cancer-Free Life podcast with Dr. Ted Koren, best-selling author of Cancer is Natural, So is the Cure. More than care for patients, Dr. Koren transforms lives. He teaches people an all-natural way to heal from and address the causes of cancer using the tools we all have within ourselves. On the podcast, Dr. Koren interviews other thought leaders in natural healing who share insights and information to help you live longer and better.
So, Mandara, please tell us, where did you grow up?
I grew up in the heart of America, in Kansas, and beautiful cottonwood trees, flowing wheat fields, rivers. Is a really beautiful area of the country to grow up in.
And what was your childhood like?
You know, I grew up on a farm and very rural area. And what's really interesting is because right now we're, in this kind of COVID-19 retreat. And my family they're really going bonkers. They're like, oh my gosh, we can't see our friends. We can't go down the street and play, etc. And I told them when I was growing up in the summertime, we went to church on Sundays, but other than that, we were in the nature, fishing and swimming and, just being out in nature all the time, just, my sisters and myself. And so it was really a beautiful childhood from that perspective. Not to say that our parents didn't give us jobs and chores and things like that. When I was growing up, we had a wood stove, and so we carried wood in that type of thing. I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, and sort of in a indirect way, she was teaching me math and science, the mathematics of geometry and the science of the plants and trees and herbs in the garden. And I had this really strong influence of Catholicism. My family was a devout Catholic family, and we attended a Gothic-style church. And again, geometries were resplendent in this particular type of architecture. And geometries, the golden ratios were all throughout this type of architecture. I remember the stained glass windows. The saints had these magnificent halos, as well as the angels on the walls. And when the organ would strike up, these images would come alive with like embedded geometries within the halos. And so this was kind of my first introduction to the principles of resonance and entrainment, and all of this in the fields and plainlands of Kansas.
So you really didn't know it at the time, but you were becoming sensitive to these harmonics, these golden ratios, and various relationships to sound as a child.
That's true, because they're everywhere in nature. Looking at the tree, looking at the leaves. I remember my grandmother's rose garden, looking at the petals of the roses and the other types of flowers that she had in the garden as well. The vegetables, all of them have this, magnificent ratio that is truly vibrational. And of course, from those, vibrations of what I learned later in life emit sounds, and some of those sounds are in the audible range and some of them are not. And of course, today we live in a very much more technologically advanced environment where we have instruments that we can hear some of those sounds that are normally inaudible for us. Like we can hear the sound of the stars and the planets through NASA, the space program.
Do you mean like through radio telescopes?
Yes, and well, also they capture the sound, and it's brought back, and then it is reduced to our hearing range. And it's the same at the cellular level. As above, so below. The microcosm and the macrocosm. We can, with the telescope, see and hear the stars, and with the microscope, we can now see and hear ourselves.
So how did you really get involved in this? It seemed, I was reading your book, Soundflower, which I thought was great, and it seemed like a bit of a roundabout way. Or am I reading into it too much.
It really is sort of a roundabout way. Coming from the natural sciences and then moving through school and into college, a degree in art history. And while I was in college, I took some philosophy courses, and I was particularly interested in Eastern philosophy. So after college, I traveled to India, and it was in India that I started seeing these golden ratios again in a different type of architecture, and how they use particular geometries, what they call yantras, which are geometric compositions of sacred sound, to harness specific types of energies that had a very profound healing effect. You would see these encoded in the temples in India. And so when you would go there and sit in meditation, sometimes you would close your eyes and I could hear and feel these vibrations and I would open my eyes and say, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm imbibing that geometric code. And so that was sort of the extension of childhood, college, and traveling to India. While I was in India, I also began the study of Ayurveda, which is, a very old medical system that still exists today. And then when I came back to the United States, since meditation was such a really profound part of my experience and of my finding balance and harmony myself, I began a meditation center teaching. And so where I would teach meditation and I would talk to people about the power of sound and how saying certain words would invoke a particular vibration within us. And if we really focus that intention and on that, our attention on that vibration, that would bring about a state of calm and healing. And so anyway, from that vibratory experience, taught meditation, and many people through meditation were experiencing stress relief and calming of the heart rate, the balancing of blood pressure, that type of thing. And of course now the medical journals are replete. We have all of the major universities who are writing about the benefits of meditation. And so I'm going to fast forward a couple of decades when I became aware of the work of Dr. Hans Jenny, a Swiss medical doctor and natural scientist, and he had invented this thing called a tonoscope, where you would sprinkle sand or water on top of a membrane and generate sound from underneath the membrane, and it would create these geometries. And I said to myself, oh my goodness, this is exactly the experience that I had when I was in India. And all of the years of teaching meditation, I was trying to convey this vibrational, this experience of how impactful sound can be upon our human physiology. And shortly after that, I was introduced to the work of a British osteopath, Dr. Peter Guy Manners, and he had worked with a collaborative group of scientists and researchers, and they had actually created a body of work with audible sound and helping, our physiological system entrain to those sounds to restore our health.
So that's how you began to look at the sound technologies to work with people, as you mentioned in your book, Soundflower. You also mentioned that he was 97 when you met him, and he was flitting around the office and joking with patients like a younger person.
He was. Oh, gosh. I remember I couldn't believe how vibrant he was, and his agility. I mean, he would just bounce into a room full of energy, his eyes very clear, had a full head of hair, and very quick-witted. And I was like, wow, this is how we should be at 97. And later I found out after being with him for prolonged periods of time that is in that sea of frequencies where every day patients would come to his clinic, and, he was in the sea of frequencies being tuned up himself.
So he was benefiting from his own therapy, I guess.
Absolutely.
So now these sounds, you made an instrument. You are the inventor of an instrument that is able to produce certain types of therapeutic sounds that travel through a person. And you call it, I think, Acoustic Meridian, where you clear out the meridians. Can you explain a little bit about this?
I'd be happy to. So if we look at the body as a symphony, and, when there is an injury or some part of the symphony gets off key, that's where an injury or we'll even say a virus or, our immune system gets low and, we get out of tune. There's some disharmony there. And so when I work with Dr. Manners, he, as I had mentioned, worked with a collaborative group of researchers, and they had this body of work where they were using specific types of audible sound to approach different organ systems. And when I was working with him, he was having difficulty getting his technology up to date and that type of thing. And I had connections here in the United States, so I invited him. If he wanted to partner with me, I'd be happy to help him with that. And so we embarked on that type of business relationship. He passed on in 2009. I continue researching his work. If you remember back in the late 80s and 90s and even the beginning 2000s, technology was still advancing, and it's a little difficult to really see what's happening on an energetic level. And so I continue to research those particular frequency programs. I've created a new device called the AMI 750, and AMI does stand for Acoustic Meridian Intelligence. So what I found, Dr. Koren, is that the body is innately intelligent. If we just put it in the right environment, and of course, I'm going to tell you the right environment is a type of relaxed and maybe even a meditative state. So if you put your body in that particular type of environment, it knows exactly the sound nutrition that it needs. So the device that I created, someone can just comfortably sit in a chair and place their feet on it, because and this is very effective because of Chinese medicine. There are many meridians that begin in the bottom of the feet, and these are the meridian energy highways that take this sound nutrition all throughout the body. They are super highways, and we've documented some of this in like thermal imaging and ultrasound, diagnostic ultrasound, those types of technologies of how they're having a physiological effect. So the body is so innately intelligent, and it knows exactly what to do with these sounds, because people will a lot of times say, well, golly, I'm really having a backache. Shouldn't I put this device on my back? And really, just by placing your feet on it, the super highways of the meridians take the sound exactly where it needs to go for that pain relief.
Now, the meridians have different names based on the organs that they travel through, or the organ systems they do, like the liver and the heart and the lungs and the gallbladder, spleen, etc.
Yes, that's correct.
And from one of my readings, even though we have 6 meridians in the feet, your work really affects more of an energetic body that we have, and all 12 meridians plus others are activated or are harmonized. You could say? You
could say that they're harmonized, and so I have a very special platform. So not only have I created the specific frequency patterning, but also the combination and configuration of this specific type of application. So it's a special platform with a very special transducer that creates a field that not only, comes in through the bottom of the feet, but it's kind of like this force field. If you could imagine a little bit of a, when I was a kid, I don't know if anybody remembers the White Tornado Man or Mr. Clean.
Oh,
he
yeah.
would come in the white tornado. And so I always think, or I see when someone's on an AMI 750 and I'm watching them, I see this field around them become alive. And so it's a whole communication system. And this is another thing that kind of relates back to my studies in India. In Ayurveda, we learn about the 5 bodies, the physical body and then the 4 subtle bodies that interpenetrate each other. And so you really can't have one without the other. And it's the same way with the meridian system. Even though we have specific meridians that do originate in the bottom of the feet and other meridians that originate in the hands, they're all connected at some level. And, not with this particular type of sound, we're addressing not just the physical level, but also everything from, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, the quantum level is all coming together in this particular type of application.
So what do patients feel, or I guess clients, you could say, and not just patients, feel when they're using this instrument? And what kind of conditions do you relate it to? Now, from an empirical standpoint, there are no real diseases. Diseases are more of a medical phrase. So I don't say we are curing X or treating X. We're making the whole body work better, so that it affects every system or every named disease a person may or may not have. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense, Dr. Koren. This is exactly the premise of how we work. We work not destroying pathogens, but, increasing the force field, the vitality of the person who's already there. And whatever level they're at, how can we help, maybe turn the ship a little bit into the vibrational field of well-being. And the first thing that a lot of people will respond to is that they feel some tingling or like their cells are talking to each other. Now, not everybody feels this during the first session, but I'll say at least 60-70% of the people who have their first session will say, oh yeah, I feel a little tingling in my extremities. And so this is a sensation that will give them an indication that something is happening there. We have some people that after a session, they'll say, gosh, I feel a little sleepy, which is really wonderful, because what we want the person to do is go lie down, take just a little 5-minute cat nap, because that means the body really wants to integrate what the therapy has just given them. And so one of the long-term responses that we hear are people begin to sleep better. And it's really well known that a large portion of our population does not sleep well these days. And when we don't sleep for periods of time, we become cranky and irritable, and actually our immune system does become depressed. And so sleep is a really key thing. So being able to actually relax enough and to get back into the cycle of good sleep is another great response that we hear from people. And of course,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just was going to go on, to stress, but we have a large portion of people who are extremely stressed out and anxious. And, of course, if that's not rescued, then that usually leads to some type of pain somewhere. And we do, are able to say that we help people with their stress and pain.
And this can relate to any disease, any condition. No matter what it is, because in my book, of course, this podcast series discusses cancer, but my thesis has always been, and this is that of others, is that the tumor is a symptom of the whole body not functioning properly. So
that is correct.
You get the body functioning properly, the tumor, which serves a purpose, will no longer be needed.
That's correct. And, that's one of the first questions I asked Dr. Manners when I met him. I said, well, how does this affect people who have cancer? And of course, he immediately said, we do not treat cancer. That's for oncologists to take care of. But, as time went on, I would see many cancer patients coming into his clinic. And he said, what we're doing is we're treating these people who are extremely stressed out because of this diagnosis that they've been given. And so with this sound, these healthy sounds that we're introducing into their environment in a very targeted way, we're helping those cells to remember that their whole state of harmony. And so, yes, what is a cancer cell? It's a very stressed out cell that's gone awry.
Do you have doctors in many countries using this work?
We have units all throughout the world in pretty much every country.
How many testimonials? Is there a source where we can read about some of the experiences people have had?
I'm glad you asked that. That's the next book.
Oh.
So we're based here in the United States, and so we have to be a little mindful of our FDA classification. And so anyway, we are compiling a large volume of testimonials of people. So we're monitoring how those are shared. We have to be very careful that we're not seducing the public, but at the same time, we want people to understand how does this work with so many things? I'll just tell you, yesterday I had a woman call me she said she thought she had an infection in her eyes. And then she thought maybe she had an infection, with this recent virus. Now, this is a naturopath. You would think that, she's pretty up to speed on some natural therapies. And then, she said she's having great pain in her abdomen. And, pain can be very elusive. We can have head pain, neck pain, back pain, joint pain, nerve pain. She was having abdominal pain. And I said, well, tell me about that. How long have you had that? Turns out that she, earlier in her life had a diagnosis of chlamydia, and it had gone on for some period of time and not addressed. And so they, had removed her fallopian tubes, etc. Well, that, condition is still present in the body, so it just goes someplace else. And so now she had all this scar tissue around in her abdominal area. And so how do we address that? So these are the types of questions that, I have a person who's, working with prostate issues, another person who's working with Lyme and, many autoimmune diseases. And so our approach to these conditions, even though we have all these variety of people contacting us for help, our premise still stands that the first thing we do is we help the person come to neutral and relieve their stress. And then we start with the specific sound. So on the AMI 750, we have specific channels that address the different body systems that are being challenged. And, everywhere from, the teeth, and I think you and I have had this conversation as well, where infections and inflammation in the teeth usually find a pathway into other organ systems of the body. And Absolutely. So how do we address that? So anyway, those are the different things that we address.
Thank you. That's actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's one of the things I was fascinated by, because dental infections can cause toxicity that can target various organs or cells or tissues. It's called the focal infection theory, and it's been known for quite a long time in the dental field. And that relates to detoxification as well, that when the body is working better, it's able to dump its poisons. Have you looked at your work in terms of detoxification?
We have, and we have some good testimonials on that, and basically what we find is happening is that we create a really good environment for the toxicity to just kind of start draining normally out of the regular elimination channels. And by creating a really healthy environment, getting back in tune, then that's not a invitation for those types of pathogens to set up house.
Hey, that's the key, because I think, and from what I've seen of years of practice, one of the future of much of healing is detoxification.
It is, and you know, I think that a lot of people have become stuck, you know, and managing the toxins that we have, you know, gosh, so many. I was just speaking to someone yesterday who said for 14 years they took allergy shots as a young person, and now they're dealing with all of the metal toxicity of those injections. And you know so over decades this person became extremely ill, and how finally with energy medicine, and you know, it's kind of difficult to track the success of energy medicine because it can be so subtle. And, you know, this has been the challenge of like homeopathy and naturopathy and, you know, sound as well. You know, I mean, I even think sometimes that the realignment of, you know, that the osteopaths and chiropractors do, these are very subtle movements, but they have big impact. And a lot of times people just go, gosh, am I really thinking that? Am I believing that this is really happening? And that is a key part of it as well. But because we are such a, you know, sick society, with all of the, you know, toxins that we've grown up with, and then now the environmental toxins, it's a real challenge to start with, you know, step one and say, hey, this is going to take me a little bit of time to unravel this, and let me embrace the really good sounds and good nutrition and the good way of life to help me through this.
Now, when people use they can purchase your instruments privately, or you have doctors using it as well in clinics, correct?
We do, yes. Integrative healthcare physicians, you know, integrative medical doctors, osteopaths, chiropractors, oriental doctors, even some massage therapists use this in their practices. And then we have a part of our umbrella that is just for private owners. There are a lot of people who contact us who have, you know, situations that they're dealing with, and so we give them free consultations of how to navigate through the protocols to get the best results for their health goals.
So how can people learn more about you and what you do and your products?
Our website is Cyma Technologies, that's with the C, CYMA, technologies.com.
Excellent. And it's available here in the U.S. And do you have international distributors, or they connect with you here?
We ship throughout the world, and we are made in the USA.
Well, this is fascinating. I think it's an incredible rediscovery of ancient healing, the chanting in the old temples, and the modern sounds that have been discovered, such as I think Emoto, was he a Japanese scientist who had emotions thrown into water, and the water created crystals and patterns?
He was, yes, he was a Japanese researcher, and his work really parlayed created the pathway for making sound visible, because he was making vibrations visible through his thoughts of looking at a vial of water and pasting a particular thought, such as gratitude, on it, or a particular type of water that maybe had been prayed over. And you could just really see the effects in those photographs. What he would do is he would take these waters and freeze them, and then put them under a electron microscope and watch the geometries unfold right before your eyes, and some of them are so beautiful. If you see the ones that say gratitude, the ones that say love, or even there's one of Sanskrit prayers. It looks like gorgeous, beautiful ice crystals of beautiful diamond jewelry.
So your work really dovetails with so much of the new science coming out and a lot of the ancient sciences, and that's one of the things I like so much about it.
Thank you. Yes, and in my book, people can see the sound-made visible images of healing codes.
They were gorgeous. They were absolutely gorgeous. You can just get drawn in by looking at them.
Thank you.
So I'd like to thank you for your time and for this insight. I think this would be a unique and new way of looking at things for many people, and I invite them to investigate your products.
Thank you, Dr. Koren. I appreciate your work as well.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.